We're just talking about one big speech. Senator Elizabeth Warren grabbing a lot of attention this week. It was a speech at the National Press Club. And here's how the Times headline summarized this speech. It said, "With Democrats at a crossroads, Elizabeth Warren urges a left turn." Tell us more.
I think that headline is partially correct.
Okay.
In the speech, Warren did urge the party heading into the midterms to embrace a real unfettered economic populist agenda. She didn't really have anything to say in her speech about tacking left on social issues, which is an important point, which we can get to in just a minute. But first, let's take a listen to, I think, the sort of kernel of her speech as she gave it at the National Press Club.
Okay, here we go.
Look, they put it more politely, but these movers and shakers want the Democratic Party to respond to the 2024 losses by watering down our economic agenda and sucking up to the rich and powerful, claiming that a less progressive Democratic Party will win more elections. They are wrong.
So that is her big idea, that there are these rich, powerful people who Democrats would like to be campaign donors that don't want Democrats to go full-on economic populist. So Democrats are moderating their message when it comes to issues like affordability, limiting the range of solutions that they propose, and that's bad for the party, that it's a recipe for electoral disaster.
Okay, well, even if we posit that it's true that these big donors who are pushing in this direction are out there.
And she named one, I think, Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, I believe.
Okay, yes, and a big venture capitalist too, a tech guy. Who are the people who are supposedly cozying up to them?
Well, that's a great question because she didn't name them. She didn't name them either. She was less specific on that front. The first example that I thought of, I was trying to, because this is a speech where I think what wasn't said is as important as what was said. I was trying to think of examples of these malefactors, the people trying to get close to great wealth so that they can run campaigns. The first example that came to mind for me was Gavin Newsom, who has said that he's going to fight this proposed wealth tax in California because he doesn't want to drive business out of the state. That's the first example I thought of. In a way, she seemed to be railing against kind of classic Clintonian third way Democratic policymaking. But obviously, Bill Clinton is not someone who's running for office, and nor is Hillary Clinton anymore. So I don't think we fully know the range of people who she has in mind.
Also, to the extent that you say, viewed at least from a delimited angle, she is urging a turn left. And since this is all about the midterms, by the way.
All about the midterms.
Let's be clear. And we did have this off-cycle election where Democrats won some key elections.
By pounding home the message of we got to make things more affordable. Trump isn't helping affordability. We need to do it, right?
Right. And they were two important governorships. And those people, if memory serves, were not from the leftward wing of the Democratic Party. One, the mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, certainly, a socialist.
Right.
But overall, if you're urging a left turn and affordability is the way, and I don't think she disagrees with anybody, and I don't think anybody disagrees with her in the Democratic Party, that's going to be the key term to keep pounding at. But why would you urge a left turn when you're trying to pick up more votes and win the midterms?
Well, I think she thinks the solutions that are being proposed aren't radical enough. But we've got to make sure we get to the call from Donald Trump, right? Because we got to leave time for that. But I think Warren was asked at the National Press Club, and again in an appearance she made on CNN immediately after giving the speech. So what about social issues?
Right.
And her answer basically was a non-answer. It was, what people are worried about is economics. We have to read the room. We have to be attuned to the concerns of voters. And that I take that as her saying effectively, we need to de-emphasize social issues. She didn't come out and say it the way we've had people like, for example, Seth Moulton come out and say it.
Right.
I'm not saying that they're in the same spot when it comes to social issues.
No, they're not.
But I do think she wants to tone down the Democrats' focus on those.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, that was a really salient moment, that interview on CNN with Dana Bash, when she asked her straight out and Warren just pivoted away.
So then, lo and behold, she gets a call from Donald Trump. President Trump. And it is not to argue with her, even though she talked about him in her speech as a wannabe dictator who's basically subverting American democracy in every way, shape, and form that he can. He apparently wanted to talk with her about capping credit card interest rates at 10%, which is an idea that she supports and other Democrats support. There's a Bernie Sanders, Josh Hawley bipartisan bill in the Senate that would do that, and also about building more affordable housing. Here is how she described this call with President Trump when she was asked on CNBC about whether it was the beginning of a meaningful partnership.
Do you get the sense that you and President Trump will actually be working on things together, or do you think that this was just talk and that no action will come of it?
I don't know. You'd have to ask Donald Trump. I'm ready to go. I've got the legislation ready to go. We've got the housing bill that we've already gotten all the way through the Senate. I've worked with every Republican to get that done. My job is to do anything I can to lower costs for American families. And the Democratic Party is ready to go.
I guess they're ready to go.
Well, so she says, although I found myself wondering after this speech if Democrats like the idea of Elizabeth Warren making common cause with President Trump. I doubt that was on the radar heading into the speech. But if you're a Democrat, a generic congressional Democrat, and if you think the party's best chance to regain control of a chamber of Congress is to say President Trump has done absolutely nothing on affordability, that was his key campaign promise, and he's ignored it. And then all of a sudden he does do something meaningful on affordability with Elizabeth Warren, it dilutes your message a little bit. And I think that's a concern in particular if you see President Trump, as Elizabeth Warren put it in her speech, a wannabe dictator who is prosecuting Jerome Powell, the chair of the Fed, for political reasons, who's planning to invade Greenland and just invaded Venezuela, who is letting ICE run amok on America's streets. If you see Trump as this existential threat to democracy, I think there's a real argument to be had about whether it does or doesn't make sense to work with him. Warren says Democrats are on board. My guess is not all Democrats are on board.
Yeah, and also I there's been criticism back, at her speech too, from centrist people, and I think some people, again, the initial question: who are these people who are cozying up to billionaires, and is this really what we need to hear right now?
Right, and Lacune in her speech, but I do think there's, in this pushback, there's been some misreading of the speech as saying that social issues need to remain at the core of this the Democratic message. Right. I read a piece in the Globe this morning that seemed to take that for granted, and I think that's the wrong reading of her speech. Okay.